Hello, guys. Good evening. It is the one and only African superstar Gina Ifoe in the building once again. Back at it again. Yes. Giving big shout outs to the African superstar family. Yes, I have a long episode for you guys today. I've prepared a list of 20 ways the Western diaspora has been negatively brainwashed about Africa via the media and education and systemic misinformation. Yes. So today we're going to have a talk about it because I'm seeing that the Western world is getting more and more and more and more distorted every single day. A lot of my audience will send me bizarre and crazy things they see on social media, and I'm just like, wow, the situation is getting worse and worse. And so I want to talk about how you have been brainwashed. We talk about brainwashing, but sometimes we don't realize how it actually pertains to us and how we have actually been affected. And so the truth is, if you're born and raised in the Western world and you don't have any direct connections to the continent, the truth is you 99% of the time have been brainwashed because you are getting a particular image or a particular skew of the continent from our colonial oppressors. So common sense would tell you, yeah, your oppressor, your historic enemy, the colonizers, those have consistently done harm to your people throughout history. It's very safe to say that they're not going to be honest about anything pertaining to you. So we talk a lot about brainwashing, but this episode is for you to realize perhaps where areas where it has actually impacted you, where you yourself are brainwashed. Okay. Because like I said, if you're born and raised in the West, you don't have any direct familial connections, meaning your parents or your grandparents, or you've had the opportunity to travel to the continent, or you've been getting alternative education, which again, the vast majority of the Western diaspora, they're not getting that type of exposure. That's the reality. The vast amount of the diaspora is completely drawing a blank when it comes to the continent, and or they have ingested a lot of these things. So I have a long list. Yes, so bear with me. Shout outs to the family. Listen, before I get started, if you're in the chat room, I need a number one, please, if you can hear me. Because yesterday, apparently, there were some audio issues. So I want to make sure that I can be heard before I get into this conversation today. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. Be on code, please. Again, this is a pro-Black, pan-African, platform. All right. So if you are a part of any of the other groups, this content is not for you. Okay. But I do ask that during live streams, the conversation is a bit interactive. You come in, you get into the chat room. Shout outs to Myrtle, the first one in the building. Thank you so much for being on code. The rest of you, hello. Did you hear what I said? Hello. I don't know why you come to live streams if you're not going to be interactive. Okay. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay. I want to start this information with there are more than 1.2 billion people in Africa. Now, this is something that they always leave out because they want you to think on a small scale whenever you think about the continent. There are 1.2 billion people in Africa. Okay, that means it is roughly 4 times the population of America. Okay, so the continent is massive. Again, if you have not traveled there, you will not understand the vastness of the continent. I remember traveling, just trying to calculate when I was going from London to Nairobi. The flight is like a solid 8 hours. Like, it's so crazy. You know what I mean? You can actually get across the country in the US in just a few hours. You can fly from New York. I think the red eye to California is like 4 hours, something like that. You can 4 to 6 hours maybe. You know what I mean? So just that distance from London to Nairobi is further than New York to California. The continent is huge. All right. And so I wanted to preface that, okay? There are more than 1.2 billion people in Africa, okay? What that also means is when you are meeting African migrants from this country or that country in America, when you're meeting them in Canada, you're meeting in England, I want you to know that that is a minority of the population that you are meeting. I'm talking about 1-2%, because the population on the continent is 4 times what is in the US. Okay, so one of the first brainwashing topics is that Africa is a single country, okay, which that is how, you know, Africa is discussed. That's how it's often referred to, okay? They do not use the proper language, which is African nations, 54 different African nations. Okay, sovereign nations. You know, it's not like state to state, which is why when you want to travel across the continent, often you're going to need, you know, your passport, you're going to need visas because you are going from country to country. Okay, now you have regions which there's a lot of similarity, north, east, south, and west, you know, but each country is its own country, has its own population of millions. Okay. Not understanding that the continent is comprised of so many different countries, you know, because actually, if you look at it, you can fit the whole Europe, the whole Asia, and America within the confines of the continent. That's how huge that it is. Okay, the number 2 topic is Africa's only poverty and suffering. The media often highlights famine, war, and disease, but rarely showcases Africa's thriving cities, economies, and technological advancements. Okay, so yes, definitely, if you are from America, this is what you have seen about Africa. Poverty and suffering. Okay, you have not seen a skyline. You have not seen some of the pristine beaches. You have not seen the waterfalls and the mountains and, you know, all the different beauties, the world wonders. I mean, matter of fact, the largest waterfall in the world, which is called Victoria Falls, it is in between Zimbabwe and Zambia. You hear about all these different 7 wonders of the world and all this type of stuff advertised to you. Not once do you learn that the world's biggest waterfall is on the continent. Okay, this is strategic for you and your mind to associate that the continent is poor. Okay, which is such an oxymoron because again, we know that all of the mineral resources, the majority of the world's mineral resources come from Africa. Okay, come from our rich and fertile soils. So in itself, the logic doesn't make any sense. Big shout outs. I see you, Abdul. Thank you for getting in the chat room. He says they don't tell you that. That's why tonight I'm talking about 20 ways that the Western diaspora has been negatively brainwashed. They are feeding crap to you, lies to you. And again, if you don't have direct ties to the continent and you've never traveled here, you must question where these things come from. It's brainwashing. We talk about brainwashing as if it's a third-party event. Very seldom do people acknowledge that, yes, I was brainwashed. Yes, I was ignorant. Yes, I had misinformation. People's pride, you know, they can't acknowledge it. But the truth is, if you don't have practical information, but you have a strong opinion about things, 9 times out of 10, you have been brainwashed. Okay, so the first thing I talked about was the huge population on the continent. 4 times the amount of America, for instance, 1.2 billion people on the continent. Again, destroying the fact that people, Black people, African people, people of color are minorities. No, our population is 4 times more than America. How can it be? That means that we populate the world 4 times more than the US. All right. The first lie, Africa is a single country. It is not. It is a continent, a very vast continent comprised of 54 different countries. Number 2, Africa is only poverty and suffering. Number 3, Africans live in huts and jungles. Okay, the Western media loves to portray that there is no modernity here on the continent. There's no cities, there's no skyscrapers, there's no Uber, there's no roads, there's no cars, there's no electricity. That's part of the lies that they are telling you guys. Okay, Johannesburg is like Atlanta. You know, when you go to South Africa, I mean, it literally felt like the U.S. to me. You know, I have only been to Egypt and North Africa. I hear that Morocco is quite developed. Obviously, Ghana is one of the most expensive, one of the better developed countries in West Africa. Kenya is amazing, one of the, you know, fastest growing economies in Nairobi, skyscrapers everywhere. You know, they have high-speed train in Kenya. All these things are happening on the continent. Okay, but you never see them in the Western media. Why is that? Hello. They only show you the rural villages. and from having conversation with many diasporians over the years, they really believe that. They really believe that there literally is no modernity here in Africa. And I would say that, again, it doesn't make sense for, you know, thousands of diasporians to be leaving the Western world to come and live in huts and jungles and dirt roads out in the villages. Common sense would tell you that, man, there must be something else to it. It can't just be what I've been told. And again, listen, critical thinking. I know a lot of people are not critical thinkers out there, but understanding that the you know, the majority of the information that we have received growing up in the Western world is being provided by our historic enemies. Okay, that fact, right? That fact in itself means that it deserves evaluation, huh? Because we know that these people have lied. We know they have lied and manipulated so many things. So we cannot also trust their narrative of the continent. Okay? So that is the number 3 lie. The number 4, one of the biggest lies. Africa has no history before colonization. Okay? I can definitely attest, growing up in Ohio, you know, the history that most Black people learn about their origins, for instance, is the slave trade. That's it. You know, ancient civilizations and things like that. Like, we never learned about the walls of Benin. We never learned about Kemet and the pyramids. And, we learned a splash about Egypt, but they always try to estrange Egypt from the African continent. You know, I remember as a young person when I realized that Egypt was in Africa, and I was always thinking, why don't they call it Africa? Why are they always, you know, they don't specify Ghana and Nigeria in our textbooks, but they always specify Egypt like it's a standalone country. And there is so much history across this continent. You know, in my small travels, I would say I've seen such rich history so far. You know, I visited Egypt, I've been to Nigeria. You know what I'm saying? I went to the Ocean Grove, which is actually just amazing. You know, it's like a shrine that's been hand carved. I mean, some of the artifacts that have been produced on this continent are extraordinary. You know, some of the gold works that are here in Ghana. I've been to a couple museums here in Ghana. I traveled to Kumasi and went to Mincha, which is the Royal Museum of the Asante Hene, you know, former kings of the Ashanti region. And, you know, some of the artifacts are just astounding. Again, things that we never even are aware of in the Western world. Okay, they want us to feel like our history is explicitly limited to the slave trade. Why? Because that is a very demeaning institution. You know, if you think that all your people are capable of, or that is their whole role in the big scheme of the world, it will affect your psychological well-being. And that's why we can see why Western Blacks are so sick in their minds, why they have a lot of psychological issues. You know, some acknowledge, a lot not acknowledge, but obviously that lack of roots, that lack of identity is causing them to literally go insane. You know what I mean? Because again, if you are the son of a king, for instance, or you're the son of a president, or you're the son of a rich, wealthy family, okay, that adds a lot of pride to you. You know, that adds a lot of identity to you. It changes the way you carry yourself. All right. Now, if your mom, for instance, was a prostitute and you don't know who your daddy is, and you heard that your grandmother was a drug abuser, and or maybe you're adopted, you know, you had some kind of really rough beginnings, that stuff it starts to torment you psychologically. And we see this. We see a lot of that mental torment with the Western world. Okay, that is why they teach us that our origins is strictly restricted to the slave trade. There's nothing before and there's been nothing after, which again, guys, is the lies. Okay, it's currently Black History Month. And every Black History Month, I'm always astounded at all the information that I learn about Black inventors that created this and people that did this and that. Today, I posted on my Instagram about the first Black woman that they did surgical, surgery on her without anesthesia. And, again, just so many unknown. So basically, listen, hello, our enemies controlling our education are telling us lies. You 99% have been brainwashed. You come from the Western world, growing up there. Okay, until you started doing your independent research, until you started reading alternative books, until you started, listening to Malcolm X and, listening to Kwame Nkrumah and coming to the continent, you were brainwashed, and that was all by design. All right, and just to answer that, our origins are not there. Our history begins at the beginning of time. Okay, this is the cradle of humanity. The continent is the cradle of humanity. Okay, we helped to civilize these other nations. Okay, these other people, we saved them from themselves. That's the truth. So that means that we've been contributing to society for centuries. I don't even know what's the term for thousands of years. Millenniums. You know what I mean? Bishop, thank you, ATM. Tim, today I'm talking about 20 ways that the Western diaspora has been negatively brainwashed, okay? I'm not talking about people who aren't watching this video. I'm talking about you, okay? Because some of these things apply to you. Some of them used to apply to me, all right? So the first point was that Africa is a single country. Africa is a continent, 54 countries. Africa is only poverty and suffering. That's a lie. Okay, they make sure to omit everything that's going on here on the continent that is popping. Trust me. Number 3, Africans live in huts and jungles. You guys see me walking to the gym in my vlogs. Have you guys seen any huts and jungles? I mean, hello, have you? Because all I see around here is mansions and gated communities and things like that. Hello. Number 4, Africa has no history before colonizations. Schools often ignore African civilizations like Mali, Kush, Aksum, and Great Zimbabwe, instead of teaching that Africa only became relevant after European intervention. Okay, the number 5 point. This one, a lot of Western diasporans are really hung up on this. Number 5. Africans sold their own people into slavery. This is a big one, okay? Because this is a big hang up of the diaspora. Diasporians love white people, huh? They marry them. They're in the beds with them. But they hold Africans more responsible for the transatlantic slave trade than the white people who are the direct benefactors, who have always been. All right. This narrative removes European responsibility for the transatlantic slave trade, ignoring the violence, deception, and economic pressure used to fuel slavery. Hello, guys, our oppressors, have they ever been honest about anything? Have they ever done business fairly? What makes you think that they were doing business fairly during transatlantic slave trade? If that's the case, then that means the continent benefited the most from the transatlantic slave trade. And we know that's not the truth. We know who benefited the most from the transatlantic slave trade, and it was not Africa. Okay, Africa lost human capital, knowledge, and minerals during the transatlantic slave trade. Our people have been the biggest losers of the transatlantic slave trade. That's another brainwashing tactic. Okay, there's an African proverb that says, when two brothers fight, a foreigner inherits the land. And that's exactly what they do. They come in and they divide and conquer. They pit one side against the other, and then they absolve themselves out of it. Okay, because white people are the most unaccountable people in the whole world. They have yet to even take responsibility for their actions in their heritage. Okay, anytime you bring it up to them, well, I mean, I can't be responsible for what my great grandfather did. Bullshit, excuse me. Okay, meanwhile, these are the same people. If you owe them $10, they're not taking 9. They know all about royalties. They know all about generational wealth. Hello, they know all about receiving the benefits from what has happened in the past. It's not simply, I did this today and, there's no recourse. No, they take no responsibility and they try to shift it on us. This is brainwashing, guys. Hello, trying to wake you up. Because a lot of Western diaspora are brainwashed. Some of you can be retrieved. I know the vast majority of you can't, but I want to show you how you have been affected in your psychological. Big shout out to the African superstar family today. All right. Number 6, African religions are witchcraft. This is another brainwashing tool. African spiritual systems like Vodun, Ifa, and Kemetism are often demonized, while Western religions are seen as superior and civilized. Hello? Okay, so it's okay for the Chinese man to go talk to Buddha. Okay, it's okay for the Indians to talk to the cows. Hello? It's all right for the Romans to pray to Virgin Mary or whatever. When we want to practice our own religions, our own historic, African spirituality, it's a problem. It's demonized. Okay, guys, listen. No double standards. Okay, these whites don't get away with what they do and then try to flip it on us like we're the bad guys. And the truth is, that African spirituality is very, very, very powerful. Meanwhile, we cannot solicit any support from Allah or white Jesus. Hello, some of you guys are my age or older, and we're yet to see any trace of these individuals. Hello, but every African knows about juju. Every African knows about rituals. Every African knows about a priest or a shrine. Huh? Some of those Christians here in Ghana, when they're having infertility issues or this and that, health issues, they're going to the bush to get some relief. Hello? Stop seeing so much negativity when it comes to your people and seeing these criminals as putting them on the pedestal. Okay? They are strategically brainwashing you and potentially your kids. Huh? Continental Africans believe that if they take their kids to England, they take their kids to Canada, they take their kids to America, they're going to get a better education. Meanwhile, they're pumping this junk into our kids' head. And actually, literacy and comprehension is at an all-time low in the US currently, let me tell you. If you're raising and educating your kid here in Ghana, your child is probably better off here. I just got to be honest. But again, they have made us believe that everything that we create, everything that we innovate, everything that we manage is inferior, and everything that they do is superior. And guess what, guys? It's brainwashing. It is a lie. All right. Number 7, I'm going to do a recap at 10. Shout out to the family. Please make sure your presence is known in the chat room. You can also support the stream if this information is good for you. Yes, because I'm helping you to understand where you have been brainwashed. Okay, you don't know anything about the continent, but you have such an opinion. We have a lot of those people that come on my channel. They talk with their whole damn chest and they don't even have a passport. You've been brainwashed, my friend. You don't know anything. You think you know. You've watched a couple YouTube videos and listened to some podcasts and you think you know something about the continent. You are sorely mistaken. So I'm here today. Number 7. Africans want to escape to the West. I hear this a lot. Again, people coming in the comments. Well, if Africa's so nice, why do Africans want to come to the Western world? The West promotes the idea that Africans are desperate to leave, ignoring the millions who stay and thrive in their homelands. Let me give a recap to those of you guys that have joined us. Population-wise, there's 1.2 billion people in Africa. Okay, that's what they estimate. They don't really know. These figures, they never really know. All right, but they estimate that there's 1.2 billion people in Africa. The United States has 323 million. Africa is roughly 4 times the population of the US. That means that them couple of Ghanaians that you know, them couple of Nigerians you know, that house of Somalis, that's not even 1% of Africans. There are billions of Africans living here on their continent. And the West would have you believing that everybody is leaving. You know, every time I see those newscasts where they're obviously showing like the boats of migrants turning up in Italy and turning up in England and turning up in Spain, I just think to myself, propaganda. Let me tell you, a lot of these African people here, they're rich. I'm sorry. I know it's jarring. They can take planes. And I have to take no damn boat to Italy. Please. That's number 7. Number 8. Woo, another brainwashing tool. Africa is helpless without the West. Foreign aid is exaggerated while African innovation, self-sufficiency, and local problem solvings are overlooked. Huh? Okay. The West would have you thinking that Africa it can't function without America, when actually the opposite is true. Hello. What is your precious America? What resources are they generating? What natural resources do they have? Do they have the gold? Do they have the cobalt? Do they have the diamonds? Do they have the cocoa? Do they have the palm wine? I mean, the list is long what Africa provides to the whole world. The West would have you thinking that Africa cannot function. The reverse is true. Okay? Brainwashing. Number 9, African leaders are all corrupt dictators. While corruption exists, Africa is no more corrupt than the Western countries, yet African leadership is disproportionately demonized. Hello. How many political scandals do we hear about? For God's sake, Donald Trump is a felon. At least I can say over here they're not electing felons to the highest office of the land. You see, a lot of this stuff is what, guys? It's brainwashing. It's conditioning. The West is doing the same, equal, or worse. The whole world is doing a lot of the things that are going on here on the continent, yet we have the microscope over here. Okay? You have been brainwashed. Let me tell you. That's why I'm here to discuss 20 ways. Some of you are listening and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, you know, I have that in my mind too. It's okay. Because that's by design. They want you to have a negative perspective about the continent so that you miss out, so that you never come and investigate. You never come and travel here. You never come. That is why I keep referencing here on the channel that if what you thought was true about Africa, if it was true, there's no way you would have blasts from all the Western nations, Australia, Europe, Canada, the US, coming on here and saying, oh my God, I came to Africa, changed my life. There's no way. Okay, the reason that it's like that is because we've actually been lied to in those environments. When we come here, it's a different thing. Big shout out to the African superstar family. Yes, I will get through this list and then I'm going to come through the chat room and greet you. So do the needful. Okay, number 10. African culture is backwards. Traditional African customs are often portrayed as primitive rather than diverse and valuable cultural practices. My God. Let me tell you, I love, for instance, the culture in Nigeria. I love the culture here in Ghana. I mean, I think the traditional clothing is amazing. I think some of the practices, some of their ceremonies, it's just amazing. Some of the logic behind why they do what they do, and when you actually learn it or you learn part of the language and you see how it all connects, it just makes sense. Okay? They actually think they have us thinking that the African way of life is inferior, but look at the state of family, look at the state of community in the Western world. Okay, everybody's going bananas over there. Everybody's going nuts. Anane, yo, Mati, thank you so much. Okay, men and women don't even know their gender anymore in the Western world. Okay, kids are taking weapons to school and offending their classmates. Okay, men and women are having gender wars. Okay, all this stuff is happening in the Western world, but they have the audacity to look down on Africa, look down on Asia, look down on the Latin world, where there's still family values, where there's still tradition, where there's still community, where there's still, you know, all this rich culture. It's crazy. It's brainwashing. That is actually beautiful. Okay, culture, heritage, tradition, it is beautiful. Okay, and again, it's brainwashing because they preserve their stuff. Hello? They preserve their stuff in the US. You can go to Washington, D.C. They got the Smithsonian Museum. You can go see Mount Vernon, where George Washington's house was. You can go, I remember over the summer, I went to Philly and we saw where the Declaration of Independence was signed. Huh? They preserve their culture and their history while telling us that ours is inferior. Huh? Their museums are full of our artifacts, priceless artifacts. Hello? Structures built on this continent, they're saying aliens made it because they can't attribute it to our people, because our people had advanced technology before they did. But we know from modern day, our people innovate and all their people do is steal and capitalize and take credit. So if you look at that type of, that type of mentality, it makes a lot of sense that our people have innovated a lot of things and just have not got any credit for it. Huh? And some of our people are brainwashed thinking that our people are incapable of anything and that their people are superior, right? Brainwashing. Big shout out to the African superstar family. Guys, tonight I'm talking about 20 ways that you have been brainwashed. Okay, they're playing mind games on you. And I'm here to talk about it tonight. Let's take it from the top. First of all, there are estimated 1.2 billion people in Africa. Okay, get it right. We're not a minority group. Hello? The population on the continent is 4 times the size of that of America. Those that you guys are encountering in the Western world, those that migrate, very, very small portion of our people. Okay? Number 1, propaganda. Africa is a single country. No, it is not. It's a vast continent that can encompass all the other countries can fit within the continent of Africa. It is a massive continent comprised currently of 54 different nations. Number 2, Africa's only poverty and suffering. You're crazy if you think it's only poverty and suffering over here. Why the hell do you think that we are moving here? Are you crazy? You guys see my vlogs. Have you seen any poverty or suffering in my vlogs? Have you seen me in poverty or suffering? Hello? Have you seen any huts? Have you seen any wild animals? That's part of why I do the walking vlogs. So you guys can see some visuals on the ground, real time, here in the city of Accra. Okay? They want you to think that you're going to land your plane in Lagos and you're going to land your plane in Nairobi and you're going to see huts everywhere. It's a lie, guys. It's brainwashing. Foolishness. Number 3, Africans live in huts and jungles. That there's no modernity here, that there's no infrastructure here. It's a lie. Number 4, Africa has no history before colonization. Another lie. Hello? Our history predates their history. Do your research. Number 5, Africans sold their own people into slavery. Guys, this is a very popular propaganda that we have been fed. Why? To break brother against brother. To pit brother against brother. Meanwhile, we should be creating, we should be creating like a bridge. We should be creating, unity and working together. Meanwhile, we're doing diaspora wars. Why? Because of some of these lies and brainwashing. Okay. Number 6, African religions are witchcraft. That's what they have us thinking. Because they've what? Brainwashed us to be Christian, brainwashed us to be Muslim, brainwashed us to estrange ourselves from everything that is a part of our heritage. Number 7, Africans want to escape the West. Okay, we negate all of the billions currently living here on the continent for the 1%. Maybe. That move abroad. Number 8, Africa is helpless without the West. Au contraire. It's quite the opposite. Number 9, African leaders are all corrupt. World leaders are all corrupt, including those in the Western world, including the Prime Minister in the UK, including the President of the United States. Hello. A lot of pyramid schemes, embezzlement, murder, all kind of stuff going on with these politicians around the world. We put the microscope on whatever's happening over here on the continent. And again, they just remove themselves from the equation. Number 10, African culture is backward. African culture is beautiful. African cultures are astounding, will blow your mind. Educate yourself. All right, moving on to the second set. Number 11, African women are oppressed and uneducated. Woo! Brainwashing. While gender inequality exists, Africa has many female leaders, entrepreneurs, scholars whose contributions are ignored. Let me say that again. While gender inequality exists, Africa has many female leaders, entrepreneurs, and scholars whose contributions are ignored. They are very good and consistent at always downplaying whatever we do. You know that movie called Hidden Figures? Hello? Y'all know that movie called Hidden Figures where they talked about how black women came up with the equations for the NASA space travel? I thought to myself, woo! Listen, you cannot trust your enemies. All right? That's what I'm going to say. And they have been playing mind tricks on us. And if they've lied to us about so many things, they've lied to us about so many things on the American soil, on the British soil, out there in Canada. So what makes you think they're not going to lie about the continent? Hello, you have been brainwashed, my friend. You have been brainwashed. It's not your fault, okay? But it is your fault if you remain brainwashed, okay? Number 12, another lie. Africa contributes nothing to global culture. They steal everything from the continent. And then they try to act like it's new technology. Africa has influenced everything from music, including Afro beats and jazz, to fashion and science, but its contributions are often erased or appropriated. Huh? I remember a couple months ago, I saw on TikTok this white lady had some fabric and she tied up her baby. Okay, here in Ghana, it's called backing. It is an undisputable African technology that women have been doing for centuries, in which they tie their child to their back so that they can have their arms free and do that. You know, it's a very, very common thing I see here in Ghana. People carrying their child on their back. Sometimes they might be selling things or they have bags or whatever. Meanwhile, this white lady was trying to call it something else and act like she's come up with something new. There was this other TikTok that has been floating around out there, if you guys have seen it, where they talk about a lot of these high fashion designers have taken a lot of their inspiration from tribal people here on the continent. Huh? Such as Louis Vuitton, some of their prints are some of the prints that they have actually stolen from cheese from Cameroon and Nigeria. Okay, but they act like we don't contribute anything to the big scheme, and they're the ones who are leading the way. It's a lie. Brainwash. Okay, your people are behind a lot of the things that you love and use. Yes, that's the truth. All right, that's the truth. Number 13, Africa is a disease-ridden continent. The focus on diseases like Ebola and HIV overshadows Africa medical's advancements, research, and healthcare improvements, not to mention the overall healthy nature of the continent. Huh? Hello? In the Western world, you're eating chemically modified food. You're living in a society that's dominated by the pharmaceutical industry. Okay, which is why America has one of the highest rates of obesity in the whole world. All right, people here on the continent, fit, strong, healthy, live into their old age. You see elderly people here still moving around, still cooking, still going up and down. Huh? We don't even have what's it called? What are those places? Oh gosh, geez, my mind is turning into jelly. Nursing homes. We don't even have nursing homes here in Ghana because either the elderly are being taken care of by their family or they're fit and they're living on their own, doing their own thing, still traveling. Huh? People always talking. I mean, guys, listen. This is how you know it's brainwashing. Parallel some of these things that you have been programmed to believe about Africa, and then look at what happens to your African superstar when she comes here. Hello, my skin heals up. I lose weight. I look better. I'm happier. You know what I mean? More active. Does it make sense? And matter of fact, those diseases are not indigenous to the continent. They have been imported here. You remember how your friends in the US, they took out the Native Americans with smallpox, huh? They put the smallpox into to the blankets and gave it to the Native Americans. Well, guess what? Fortunately for us, our people have great immune systems, obviously, because they have withstood so many attacks, biological attacks. That's what they should be called here on the continent. Hello. Number 14, African people are unintelligent or uncivilized. This racist stereotype undermines the intelligence, achievements, and innovations of Africans throughout history and today. Hello? Think about some of the African people that you know that maybe you've met in the Western world. Doctors, lawyers, engineers. They're in all the top professions. In the NHS, a lot of their doctors, Nigerian doctors, Ghanaian nurses. A lot of engineers out there. Brothers innovating. Nigerians particularly intelligent and dominating in many, many fields. Okay? Coming up with new surgical procedures and all kind of things like this. How can it be that our people are unintelligent and incapable and yet doing that? Then when you reference ancient times, think about having less access, okay, less technology, less resources, and coming up with the things that they did. It can be nothing else but divinity and divine inspiration, honestly. Because sometimes I think about that as a musician. I think about how people like create it, because a lot of our generation just samples previous music. You know, that's what a lot of the modern day artists do. Hello, please pause and take a like to the live stream. If you're enjoying this, please do the needful. Hello, because I'm on it today. Please send a super chat love. We're trying to get to the studio. All right. We got 30 of you guys in here. Okay, do the needful. So, guys, again, programming you to think that people from the continent are stupid and incapable. Meanwhile, when you see them in the Western world, they're actually doing pretty well. I mean, when have you seen a Nigerian working at McDonald's? When have you seen them, hustling? If they do, a lot of times they do it for the interim. While they're going to school, while they're doing this, while they're doing that. And a lot of them have things popping off here in Africa, and you would never even know it. Okay, more brainwashing, more lies. Okay. Number 15. Thank you, Nkrumah Shore, for your support. I appreciate that. Number 15. Africans are all poor and starving. While poverty exists, Africa has billionaires. If you don't know, look up Dangote. Okay, Dangote. Okay, oil billionaire from Nigeria, living in Nigeria. Okay, he doesn't even want to live in the Western world. He can live in the whole, anywhere he wants to be. He's in Nigeria. All right, you can look up Kwame Despite here in Ghana. Okay, media mogul. He just built a brand new, I'm talking about mansion that's like 2 whole city blocks. It's insane. Here in East Legon. Okay, billionaires here on the continent. And not just that, middle class people that's balling. Owning modest mansions, luxury cars, travels, you know what I mean? You guys just don't know. You just don't know about the brainwashing. Number 16, another brainwashing. African men are violent or abusive. Hollywood and media portray African men as warlords, criminals, abusers, while ignoring positive examples of African leadership and fatherhood. Listen, let me tell you something. We've talked about it here on the channel. I even talked about it on Kinganda with O'Shea. You know, the manhood here is a lot different than the Western world. And that has to do with the fact that men are having exposure to other men. Unfortunately, the war on Black men in the Western world is real. Okay. And because men are being eliminated, that trickles down into their families, it trickles down into their kids. And I think that's a huge part of why the Western, you know, the community, the diaspora, and the Black community in the Western world is very dysfunctional because, you know, you need that family foundation to know who you are. You know, I think I may be a different type of woman if I didn't come from a family full of love and parents who wanted me and raised me and were present my whole life. You know, when you have to mitigate that very thing, it creates so much chaos. You know, African men are gentle. African men here are responsible. You know, I was having that conversation with my boyfriend the other day, and he was saying that, you know, it wouldn't be unusual that if they had a friend that was kind of wayward and being irresponsible, that their brothers, their friends will pull them aside and say, hey, man, what are you doing? You need to straighten up. You need to take care of your family. You need to take care of your, you know, they wouldn't just let it go that this, their friend was being irresponsible or this, their brother was being irresponsible. Manhood is different here on the continent, you know, and from what I've seen, African men are very, very gentle, very, very slow to violence and anger. You know what I mean? They operate different here in terms of that. They're not very, you know, quick tempered and violent, shooting people every time they don't get their way or fighting all the time in the streets. And you know what I mean? Very calm. And again, the stereotype paints our men negatively. Meanwhile, all of it, these non-Black women are eager, hello, to get one. Does it make sense? All the top athletes, all the footballers, all the movie stars, they can't wait to have one in their arm. Does it make sense that they're violent and dangerous and crazy? And hello, the oxymorons are plenty. It's brainwashing, guys. It's programming. I've heard, you know, diaspora women talk about that. Oh, you know, I've heard African men are so controlling and this and that and the other. And I'm just like, well, you know, I have not experienced that. I don't, I think it's the brainwashing. All right, number 17, Africa has no role in science or technology. Blatant lie. Africa is the home. Africa is the home to ancient mathematics, medicine, and architectural achievements, but its scientific contributions are downplayed. When I went to Egypt, okay, I was shocked to learn that the Romans and the Greeks were coming to Egypt to protege under the Egyptians. The Egyptians taught them their building methods and all this kind of stuff, other technologies. And of course, just like they do, they come, they, you know, they study, they learn, and then they put their stamp and make it their whole thing. And it made a lot of sense to me once I went to Egypt, because one of the things that was astounding to me was the building, like the large, incredible scale of buildings. And then I remember when I went to Rome, how, you know, they basically mimicked a lot of those things. And then when I went to Paris, there was actually a stele, you know, one of these very big, tall pillars that came from the continent, came from Egypt. Egypt gifted that to Paris. And I thought about Europe's fascination and obsession with the continent. And I thought to myself, wow, you know, but again, we don't get any credit for that. But they make it seem like we're not contributing anything. Number 18, again, for some of you guys out there in the Western world, Africa has no infrastructure or modern cities. Cities like Lagos, Nairobi, and Kigali are thriving hubs of innovation, yet they are rarely shown in the Western media. Yes. It's called, I mean, they have a lot of different words for them, but it basically it's the stele. It's a big, tall, you know, pillar, and then it kind of has a point at the top. It's meant to symbolize the male genitalia. It's meant to be like a reproductive symbol. That's what it's meant to symbolize. They have them in Ethiopia as well, but they have a lot of them in Egypt. I saw some in Luxor. But yes, there's actually one in Paris that was given to Paris from Egypt, from the Egyptian president. Okay. So yes, I was talking about another brainwashing tip. That Africa has no infrastructure or modern cities. A lot of Western Black people seem to think this. They seem to be very shocked that there are cities here just like anywhere else in the world. And I do recognize, yes, the Western media does not show you any of that. You know what I mean? I remember being just completely shocked when I got to Nairobi. Nairobi is crazy. They have a lot of skyscrapers there. Johannesburg. I was like, wow. Yes, we have modern cities here in Africa, guys. Don't believe the hype. They're lying to you. 19. African languages are primitive. African languages like Swahili, Yoruba, and Amharic are complex, rich, and historically significant, yet they are often dismissed. And let me add Tree from Ghana. These are beautiful languages. Like when I'm actually learning Tree, I try to learn a bit of it living here in Ghana. And as I learned the words, I learned the meanings, it's just like, wow, it really has a depth that I don't see in English. English is very kind of a straightforward language. A lot of these African languages, they have like parables built into them. A word is not just like, that's a tree or that's an egg, or you know what I mean? It has a richer meaning. And they're very, very beautiful and very interesting. So they do try to make everything about civilization in Africa, appear primitive. It's brainwashing. And number 20, and I'm going to recap for everybody in here the 20 things that you may have been brainwashed into believing about the continent. Number 20 is Africa will never catch up with the West. The idea that Africa is forever behind ignores the reality of its rapid development, growing industries, and increasing global influence, as well as its young population. Hello. The population is dwindling and aging in the Western world, and the continent of Africa holds the youngest population, probably in addition to like China and India, some of the youngest populations around the world. Okay. These false narratives serve to disconnect Black people in the West from their African heritage and prevent unity between the diaspora and the continent. Recognizing and challenging these myths is key to reclaiming a positive and accurate understanding of Africa. And so I want to say to my other fellow content creators out there, make a strong position what side of the coin you stand on. Okay, stand on business, because again, there's a lot of confusion with the diaspora. Some people are very, very confused, deluded, and disconnected from their origins. If you are not in that group, make sure you make the line of demarcation clear as to where you stand. We must renounce these nonsense thoughts and theories and let it be known where we are coming from. Okay, so again, one more for the top. First and foremost, there are more than 1.2 billion people in Africa. Don't get it twisted. The populations on the continent run circles of that of the US and Europe. Okay, the population is roughly 4 times the size of the American population, which was last estimated at 323 million. Okay, so again, they will have you thinking that the continent is small, the continent is irrelevant. No, we have a bigger population than the continent, American continent. Okay. Number 1, falsehood. Africa is a single country. False. Africa is a continent comprised of 54 different countries. All right. Number 2, Africa is only poverty and suffering. The media often highlights famine, war, and disease, but rarely showcases Africa's thriving cities, economies, and technological advancements. Guys, they're lying to you. Okay, we had somebody on the channel. I can't let it go. He came on the channel and said that Africa's not popping. The brother has been brainwashed. Okay, it's totally popping here on the continent. All right. Number 3, Africans live in huts and jungles. Again, I contest this with my daily vlogs I put here on the channel. Do you see any huts and, whatever, jungles? Do you see any wildlife? Did you see any giraffe? Did you see any, wild animals? No, you didn't, because that is a falsehood. Number 4, Africa has no history before colonization. A blatant lie. A blatant lie. All right. Schools often ignore African civilizations like Benin, Mali, Kush, Aksum, and the Great Zimbabwe. Hello. They're lying to you. Number 5, Africans sold their own people. Huh? Let me turn the volume up. This narrative removes European responsibility. You better never, ever hold another African more responsible than your YT buddies over there in America and England. All right? This narrative removes European responsibility for the transatlantic slave trade, ignoring the violence, deception, economic pressure used to fuel slavery. Number 6, African religions are witchcraft. It's a lie. And we're allowed to practice our religious beliefs just like anybody else. Number 7, Africans want to escape to the West. That's definitely the narrative they have embedded in your brains. The West promotes the idea that Africans are desperate to leave, ignoring the millions who stay and thrive in their homelands. Hello. Number 8, Africa is helpless without the West. Another falsehood. Number 9, African leaders are all corrupt dictators. Hello? Meanwhile, you got a felon sitting in the White House, but you think all the corruption's popping here in Africa. No. Politicians globally, worldwide are corrupt. It is not an African thing. It's a global thing. All right? Number 10, African culture is backwards. Traditional African customs are often portrayed as primitive rather than diverse and valuable cultural practices. The cultures across this continent are astounding. I encourage you to learn about them. Number 11, African women are oppressed and uneducated. I'm sure you guys have met them baller chicks. A lot of the Africans you meet, they're more bougie than you. They don't have more, they're more prestigious than you. I'm just being honest. Especially here in Ghana. I mean, their families got money, their families got property, they've been to the top schools. Don't get it twisted. Number 12, Africa contributes nothing to global culture. Hello, we have influenced everything. More falsehoods. Africa is a disease-ridden continent. More falsehood. Number 14, African people are unintelligent, uncivilized. Please parallel that with the African people that you know. Because it's a falsehood. It's a lie. Number 15, Africans are all poor and starving. Lord have mercy. Number 16, African men are violent or abusive. Big shout out to the African superstar family. Number 17, Africa has no role in science or technology. Meanwhile, Africa is the home. Africa is the home to ancient mathematics, medicine, and architectural achievement, but its scientific contributions are downplayed. Guys, this is how they twist your brain because they got you thinking our people do nothing when it's the opposite. 18, Africa has no infrastructure or modern cities. Again, reference my daily vlogs. Okay, you can see it for yourself through my lens. That there is infrastructure and modernity in buildings and all of that here. Number 19, African languages are primitive. African languages like Swahili, Yoruba, and Amharic are complex, rich, and historically significant, yet they are dismissed. Number 20, Africa will never catch up to the West. The idea that Africa is forever behind ignores the reality of its rapid development, growing industries, young population, and increasing global influence. Hello. These false narratives serve to disconnect Black people in the West from their African heritage and prevent unity between the diaspora and the continent. Recognizing and challenging these myths is key to reclaiming a positive and accurate understanding of Africa. Big shout out to the African superstar family. You guys have stuck through it all. Yes. So please, I'm just going to briefly come through and shout you guys out. It's a lot of you here, so please just bear with me. Yeah, matter of fact, I can't even go through all you guys. It's a lot of comments. Shout outs to Samuel Asante, I see you. M. George, big shout out. Sel, I see you there. Thank you so much. Nakru Mature, big shout outs to my moderators. I see you guys. Yes, Abdul was in the chat room. He says, matter of fact, white people breaking their neck to get to Africa. Very true. S.A. Smith, I see you there. Thank you, sweetheart, for being in the building. Please, guys, if you're not a member of our platform, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the stream. If you love this topic, make sure that I know it. Hello. Big shout out to you guys. Revolutionary Black Power, brother, I see you there. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you to the family. You guys were patient while I got through that. Anane Samuel, I see you there, brother. Thank you so much for the love. Yes, yes, yes. Make sure you guys can send some tangible support if you appreciated this message. Shout outs to Nakru Mature on that super chat. Yes, yes, yes. Trying to get through here. Miss Murder was in the building. Yes, thank you so much. Chrissy, I see you there, sweetheart. Yes, the ignorance is will, but I'm going to use my platform to try to combat it to the best of my ability. Yes. All right, guys. Please, if I didn't see you in the chat room, don't take offense. There was a lot of comments. I've already been here longer than an hour because it was a lot of subject matter to get through. But I definitely hope you enjoyed that. I am challenging you to deconstruct your thinking. Okay, we have been lied to extensively and perpetually by our oppressors about the nature of our continent, our homeland, our origins. And unfortunately, it's going to be up to us to individually start trying to find that information. But I want to start by challenging you to recognize your own biases and start working on them. Okay, a lot of these things I went through, you can watch the video again and think about it. A lot of them really don't make sense when you break it down, you know. But again, when there's an absence of information and then you have had some information imputed inside of you, it's hard sometimes to dispel those things. And that's why your own personal research is going to be critical in your journey. All right. So much love to the family. I want to give a special shout out to all my super chat donors. Much love to you guys. Thank you for sowing tangible seeds towards the next music session. Yes, hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. Yes, I have new music and I want to go to the studio. All right, family. So a big shout out to the African superstar family. In other news, I have an upcoming tour October 19th through the 26th. If you're interested in seeing a collaborative tour, me and Mr. Taye Uhuru, go to www.tayeehuru.com and you can see us live. And I also have a brand new track called Boom Boom. It's here on the channel, streaming on all platforms. You can purchase it at bandcamp.com. And it's also playing on the radios here in Ghana. So show some love to your girl. Go check out my new track. I think we'll close out with that, yes, let me give you a snippet of Boom Boom Family, and then we will wrap up.
My new song, Boom Boom, is a crazy banger. Oh my God. I hope you have that.
One and only
the African superstar.
African superstar on the
You
track.
gotta wanna play it on repeat. Just listen.
International award winning. Yes.
Trust me. When it comes to lyrics,
In the
we don't
midnight
play.
hour, when I get next to you, butterflies in my tummy, and my heart goes boom, boom. In the midnight hour, when I get next to you, feels so exciting, and my heart goes boom, boom. There's nobody like you, you're my one and only. Since the day that we met, I remember, you've been driving me crazy. I love your brown eyes and your chocolate skin. Not ashamed to say it over and over again.
In the midnight hour, when your pretty eyes meet mine, your qualities are mesmerized. You will go down on your knees, say a little prayer for me.
Woo! Man, that's a jam. I know y'all like that track. I know y'all do. So go look it up on the channel. You can hear the whole song. It's called Boom Boom, featuring Kojo and Hannibal. Yes, it's a banger. It's a banger. You're going to want to play it on repeat. I'm not just saying it. You know what I mean? Go check it out. All right, family? Until we meet again, stay black and true. If you ain't black, just stay true.